need me to
Yes, sir.
display that document, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries.
It's a single page email. Okay.
All right, I'm displaying
Thank you,
Union
sir.
Proposed Exhibit 31.
Okay, thank you. All right, Lieutenant, before we took the break here, of course, I had been asking you about the two versions of your IA report from October 16th and then October 18th. The October 16th version is Exhibit 28. The October 18th version is now Exhibit 29. You told us that, I want to remind you at the outset, you told us under oath that you had no recollection of the deputy chief or anyone making any additions to the charges. Do you recall that, sir? Do you recall that testimony?
I recall we talking about the ones that you pointed out, which were the first three.
Yes, and you recall me asking you, overarching, did anyone play any role in influencing you to add any charges or change any charges? Do you recall that, sir?
Yeah, but you mentioned the fact influenced, and I wasn't influenced to make any changes. Again, like I said before, I had a discussion with Deputy Chief, and obviously he's the only person that I can go to as far as what I had. And, he actually pointed out some other things in the policies to look at, and which I did.
Okay. Now you told us just before we broke that you're the one that made the change from not sustained to sustained on 1.8.3 about not using any force more than necessary, correct?
Correct.
But you made that change after talking with the deputy chief.
Yes.
Now, that same day of Exhibit 29, which is the October 18 version 2, we'll call it, of your IA report, you received an email from the deputy chief that afternoon, correct?
Is that the one we're looking at now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So you received an email and you recall receiving direction to add 2 more charges, correct?
Yes.
So the deputy chief added these 2 charges that we see here. Is that correct?
He pointed them out. Yes.
Okay. And again, the deputy chief did this without interviewing a single witness, correct?
Correct. Other than having the discussion with me.
Okay. And I know you're not listed on this email, but you acknowledge seeing this email at some point. Is that correct?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure what I believe I've seen this before. Yes, I have.
Okay. I'd like to have this introduced as Union Exhibit, I guess it would be 31.
No objection.
All right, it's admitted as Union Exhibit 31.
Okay. All right, sir. Now let's go to the final version of your report, which is Union or Employee Exhibit 13. Now, first of all, sir, can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this one is dated October 25th, 2018, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's from Deputy Chief Batten to yourself. Do you see that?
It's from me to Gary Batten. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. It's from you to the Deputy Chief, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now where it lists the allegations, we now have 5 allegations, correct?
Yes, sir.
We started with 3, and now we have 5.
Yes, sir.
Actually, there was even the 1.8.15 for the untruthfulness that was dropped somewhere between Sergeant Estes being over IA and you taking over and assuming your role as investigator in this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the untruthfulness is out of the picture at this point, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, if I'm going to have, if you don't mind, Mr. Schulman, go to the very next page of this document. Recall, Lieutenant, this morning when I was asking you about the video of the actual incident between Officer Mulero and Mr. Kidd and the so-called 20-second video. You recall us talking about that?
Talking about 20-second video. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. In the second paragraph on this page, you wrote this, and again, this is your report that you put your name to under oath. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The second paragraph, second sentence says, all pertinent documentation to include an approximately 20-second body-worn camera BWC video was reviewed by Chief of Police Jason Umberger and several members of his command staff. You see that sentence, sir?
I do see that.
Okay. And again, this is a video that you've never seen with your own eyes, correct?
Correct.
No evidence that it ever existed, no documentary evidence that it ever existed in the form of an audit trail, an axon trail, or anything of that nature, correct?
Correct.
And yet you put this in your report under oath as if that evidence actually existed, correct?
Yes, sir. And can I clarify that for just a second?
Sure.
So the reason that was actually added to the report in itself was because we had the letter from the attorney basically saying they had actually forwarded a 20-second video. So obviously somebody must have actually forwarded a video of that 20-second video. In addition to that, I was informed that the original 20-second video was actually viewed by our command staff. And it was important for me to add that on so that to show that there was the reason why there was actually a time frame from the time that they received the first video to the second.
Okay. You said, if I understood your answer to summarize a moment ago, in part, you said it was your understanding that a 20-second video somehow had been obtained by the law firm representing Mr. Kidd. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Schulman, if you can somehow, leave this one open and go to Union Exhibit 5.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by leave it open, sir. I can only display one window at a time.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I mean, I'll be coming back to this. I don't know the proper way to.
Okay, well, let me bookmark this page then.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. All right. This is the letter from the law firm, sir, representing Mr. Kidd. Is this the letter you're referring to that led you to believe that they have a 20-second video?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can we zoom in on that for me, please? I'm not able to read it.
Okay. Well, in the sentence that's highlighted at the bottom there, sir, there's no mention of the video being a 20-second video, is there?
There is not.
Okay. So again, you can't point us to any verification or evidence, documentary evidence of a 20-second video, correct?
Correct.
All right. So yet you included this in your report, page 2 of Exhibit 13. We'll go back to Exhibit 13. Thank you, sir. Isn't it true, Lieutenant Milan, that the reason you wrote this paragraph the way you did, that being this sentence, an approximately 20-second video was reviewed by the Chief of Police, Jason Umberger, and several members of his command staff. The very next sentence, it was determined that information at hand did not raise any concerns for the action taken on September 14, 2017 in reference to the arrest of Mr. Alan Kidd. It should be noted that the video depicted only the arrest and not what led up to that particular point. Here's my question. Since you're telling us today under oath, you've never seen a 20-second video, there's no evidence of a 20-second video, that this paragraph was written this way so the chief and the city could explain why they kept Officer Mulero on the street for 10 months and only opened this matter back up after they got the demand letter that included the full 6-minute and 58-second video from the law firm.
That is not correct, sir. The reason why I wrote that video, that particular sentence there, or that paragraph, is because of the fact that I was informed of this. And again, I wasn't privileged to have this information at the time. This was actually Sergeant Estes, as we spoke before, who gave or provided this information to me.
Well, did you ever ask Sergeant Estes or Chief Umberger, or you put in broad stroke here several members of his command staff, that being Chief Umberger, did you ever inquire of anybody, hey, let me see that 20-second video?
I did not.
And as the lieutenant over IA, with someone's career in your hands by the way you write your report, you didn't think that was important?
Well, to be honest with you, sir, it doesn't change the facts of the video. We got a second video, and I was able to view the second video, which actually depicts the entire incident, how it took place.
Lieutenant, there is no second video, is there?
There is.
It's like the magic bullet. There is no second video that you can point us to, is there?
Objection.
There is a video.
Hold on, Lieutenant. Hold on. What's your objection, counsel?
That assumes facts, not an evidence.
Response?
And asked and answered, to be frank.
The response is, it's the very nature of there are facts that it is not in evidence because it doesn't exist. It never did. It's a fabrication.
Okay, so I'm going to sustain the objection. I understand the point you're trying to make, counsel.
Okay.
You'll have an opportunity to argue. We don't need further testimony from this witness on that point.
All right, next paragraph. On July 31st, on or about, a second notice, you've got notice with a D, a second notice was received. Do you know what word you really meant there when you said a second notice?
We're talking about a second letter basically stating from the attorney that is representing Mr. Kidd that, they provided a full video of the incident. So that's exactly what I'm trying to refer to.
Okay. And are you familiar, I think we just touched on it briefly, but the state regulatory requirements for evidence retention, if this 20-second video existed?
Am I aware?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll say this again. I didn't know. I cannot say I never saw this video. I can just go based on what I was told. And it actually came back. It came from Sergeant Estes, who at the time was the professional standards supervisor.
Have you, do you understand what the word allegedly means?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What I'm asking is, since you told us you wrote this report, this final report dated October 25th of 2018, why didn't you in the second paragraph say all pertinent documentation to allegedly include an approximately 20-second body-worn camera? I mean, if you can't tell us that you ever saw it, you don't know if it exists.
You're absolutely correct. It's probably an oversight from my part.
Okay, that would be a more accurate and honest or truthful statement. Would you agree?
Yes, sir. Or more accurate. Yes, sir.
And you want to be accurate in your reports, don't you?
Yes, sir.
In fact, as a lieutenant now in IA, you expect, and one of the requirements is that officers be truthful and accurate in their reports, correct?
Correct.
And that includes you and IA in doing what you do. You need to be truthful and accurate, correct?
Correct.
And in that same paragraph, beginning with on or about July 31st, middle of that paragraph, it says the chief of police immediately reviewed the second copy of the BWC. Number one, how do you know the chief of police immediately reviewed the second copy? Were you present with him?
I was not present. I was actually given that information from Deputy Chief and Sergeant Estes.
Okay. So again, this is all hearsay from them relayed to you, correct?
Correct. Can I clarify? The chief of police is the only person that can actually initiate an investigation based on the complaint and or evidence that he has at hand. So maybe this is just an assumption, but he must have watched this video in order to actually move forward to being a internal affairs investigation.
So you just used the word assumption. So you're assuming that the chief reviewed this supposed second copy of the BWC video. Correct?
Again, I did not see it. All I'm saying is the fact that the chief of police is the one that makes the decision as to whether we're going to move forward with an internal affairs investigation. He does review our information before making that decision as to what we're going to do with the complaint.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the video, whether there were two, or a 20-second and a 6-minute 58-second, or just the 6-minute 58-second video, as we contend, that was always in the possession of the police department, correct?
The full video?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
In other words, this outside law firm that you claimed a few minutes ago, from which you believe they somehow got a 20-second video, they would have only gotten any video that they got from a public records request of the police department, correct?
It could have, to be honest with you, it's supposed to go that way. They could have gotten from anyone, to be honest with you. I mean, it should have gone through records department, but I don't believe that there's actually any record showing that they released that information.
Okay, so as you sit here today, you don't know how the law firm acquired their copy of the video that they referenced in their letter. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. We'll go to page 8 of this final report. You see where, middle of the page, right where the icon is that Mr. Schulman is using with the hand icon right there. You see where it says right above that, Officer Mulero responded that this is the issue he was having with the video because it does not show Mr. Kidd's hands/actions. Do you see that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you agree, do you not, sir, under oath, that the video of the BWC of this incident supports Officer Mulero's account? That is, that you can't see Mr. Kidd's hands and his actions.
Correct.
Now let's turn 2 more pages. I guess it would be page 10 of this document. Okay, right there, where we get to the conclusions. Now we have sustained findings or charges on all 5 of these charges. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And we can see from the email that's now Exhibit 31 that the latter 2 came entirely from Deputy Chief Batten and or Chief Umberger, correct?
It went from Deputy Chief Batten to Chief Umberger. Yes, sir.
You didn't come up with these 2 charges as the assigned investigator, did you?
Again, we discussed this, and again, I discussed this information with Deputy Chief Batten, who brought it to my attention, which in case I obviously put it in that, it was sustained because he actually brought to my attention that I actually missed a couple of things.
And again, we don't have a red line version here to know what changes were made to this final version as compared to the October 18th version, which is Exhibit 29. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you'll go, I think, is this page, sorry, Chris, go 2 more pages to page 12. I just have to look up one page, 28, page 12. Okay. All right. Now, in this paragraph, I just want to compare one more place. This will be, I think, the last one I want to compare. In this paragraph, beginning with the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph from the onset. You see the paragraph?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Middle of that paragraph, right after the words "get away from me." You see the words "get away from me" in the middle there?
Yes, sir.
That very next sentence, Kidd did not appear to be approaching Officer Mulero in a fast or aggressive manner. Do you see that?
I do see that.
Okay. Now, we're going to hit pause there. And if we can go to Exhibit 28, page 12. Again, right after the word, if we go to the page 12, go back a couple pages, if you don't mind, Mr. Schulman. Okay. I think it might, it's from the onset again, so it would be the, there it is right there. Okay. You see the sentence in the middle of this paragraph from the onset. Kidd, get away from me.
I'm looking
see that,
for it.
Sir? It's over on the right margin beginning, get away from me.
I see that.
Okay. Same sentence as in your final version that follows. Kidd did not appear to be approaching in a fast, aggressive manner. But look at the comma there and the word however. However, the camera view is different than Officer Mulero's vantage point. Do you see that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Now, when we go back to your final version, which is however, the vantage point is missing after that next sentence of Kidd did not appear to be approaching. Do you see that, sir?
I see that.
Do you have any explanation as to how that was removed, though the camera view that Mr. Schulman has just highlighted was removed from your version of October 18th to your final version a week later of October 25th?
And again, I repeat myself, when I forward everything over to Deputy Batten, if he sees fit to change, the way the grammar, the way it reads, that could have been the point. I honestly don't remember whether he removed it or I removed it. So I wouldn't be able to answer that truthfully.
Okay, but that's not changing grammar. Would you agree with that?
I'm sorry?
That's taking out an entire section of a sentence that changes the context. Would you agree with that? That's not just changing grammar.
Okay, it doesn't change. It doesn't change the facts of the overall facts of it.
Well, doesn't it change if the angle from the officer's vantage point from their camera is different from what you're able to see on the BWC? That could impact your findings, your sustained or not sustained findings. Would you agree with that?
Well, we're also discussing what Officer Mulero actually, testified to, to the fact that this, what his point of view was. We had to be able to consider both sides, correct?
Well, of course, you got to consider everything, just as this the totality of the circumstances for an officer in the field. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
And an officer has to make split-second decisions based on how they're assessing the situation that they're encountering, correct?
Absolutely.
And you are in the position as an IA investigator of, use the term Monday morning quarterbacking. You're watching things and looking at things and assessing after the fact his decision making, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're now telling us in your draft, you acknowledge the camera angle doesn't show you everything, including the hands of Mr. Kidd and whether he clenched his fist or came aggressively at him, correct?
Correct. But also, and can I just kind of clarify that also, the fact that that Mr. Kidd clenched his fist, at no time did you see Officer Mulero even step back from Mr. Kidd, which to me indicated that there wasn't a threat. If he felt that there was a threat, he should have stepped back. No, that's how we train. So if we feel that this person is a threat, you have to kind of separate yourself from the subject.
Well, in your initial version, though, which is Exhibit 28, you ended up concluding that you could not determine, based on your review, due to this fact at page 13, I am unable to determine whether Officer Mulero's actions were totally justified. You recall putting that?
To be honest with you, again, that's the beginning of my report in itself. And if I would have missed something, obviously it would have been brought up to my attention by Deputy Chief Batten.
Okay, but here's the overarching thing I want to get to about your report. Your signature is the one that goes on this report, not Deputy Chief Batten, correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
In fact, let's go to the last page of now Exhibit 13, which is the version of the report that you signed. Okay, you're saying, and this is your signature, you're hereby swearing under penalty of perjury that to the best of your knowledge and information believe you haven't knowingly or willfully deprived or allowed another person, the subject of the investigation, any of the rights under the Officer Bill of Rights, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's not Deputy Chief Batten's or Chief Umberger's signature on here. That's your signature, correct?
Correct.
And yet you're telling us today that you have had conversations with, we now have emails to verify that Deputy Chief Batten and or Chief Umberger added at least those last two charges, correct?
Deputy Chief Batten. I had never had a conversation with Chief Jason Umberger. I had a conversation with Deputy Chief Batten. And the reason for that, again, is because he's my immediate supervisor, and that's the person that I need to go to for any questions in regards to my investigations.
Is it fair to say, though, because your immediate report at that time was Deputy Chief Batten, you wouldn't, you understand what chain of command means and you followed chain of command, correct?
That's correct.
You said you didn't have any conversations with Chief Umberger about your three versions of the report. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Did I recall? I didn't have a conversation with Chief. I had a conversation with Deputy Chief.
Okay, but you cannot tell us, you would have to admit under oath, what conversations may have occurred between Chief Umberger and Deputy Chief Batten about your draft reports and your final report. Is that correct?
I cannot say that.
So you cannot confirm nor deny under oath if Chief Umberger was telling Chief Deputy Chief Batten to make certain changes. Is that correct?
Whether he was, I cannot say that. All I can say is the conversations that myself and Deputy Batten had,
Okay.
just the conversation between him and I.
Regardless of how the cake ultimately got made, the cake that we're looking at here, which is Exhibit 13, is your final product with your name under oath on it, correct?
Yes.
But you're not denying that Deputy Chief Batten added some ingredients to your final cake. Is that correct?
What do you mean by adding some ingredients to my case?
He added the 2 charges that we know of that's now a part of Union Exhibit 31, correct?
And again, it was all based on the conversation that him and I had.
And Union Exhibit 31 is an email from Deputy Chief Batten to Jason Umberg. Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir. We've actually viewed that. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you said you had, I want to wrap up your report with a couple questions. You told us you had some familiarity and knowledge of the Officer Bill of Rights.
Correct.
Chapter 112 Florida statutes, correct?
Yes, sir.
You did not sign this under, you signed it under penalty of perjury, but you didn't sign it before a notary public, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay. I just want to call your attention to Union Exhibit. Find it here. It's a Bill of Rights. This morning. You find it, sir? Oh, it's a Union Exhibit 16. Starts at page 76. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schulman. If you'll go to the 4th page of this exhibit. It should be 112,533. I'm sorry. Oh, you got a bad one in there. Very next. There we go. Okay. Are you familiar with this provision of the Officer Bill of Rights?
Yes, sir.
That it says you're not only to verify pursuant to 92.525, but include the following statement. You see that, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And have you since this, I know this was your first IA for the city of DeLand, have you since begun signing it before a notary public?
I have not.
Okay. You're still just signing it as you are without anyone verifying your signature. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you believe that you're in compliance with the Officer Bill of Rights by doing that?
I understand that it's an oversight of mine. I understand that I've only completed one of the 2 requirements, but I still stand behind the report. I still, stand the fact that it's accurate and correct. I'm doing it under oath now, that it is accurate.
Okay. But you say that you acknowledge that you didn't do both provisions of this statute. By the
Yes,
way,
sir.
by the way you signed this one. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the part that's missing, would you agree, is the verification, the first part under 1A1, verify pursuant to 92.525, that it's true and accurate based upon your personal knowledge, information, and belief.
Yes, sir.
In fact, your verification, I'm sorry, your signature on page 15, you don't even acknowledge that it's true and accurate. You just acknowledge that under penalty of perjury, you carry out the second part, that you believe that you haven't deprived the officer of his rights nor permitted anyone else, correct?
Correct.
So you're not even acknowledging by your signature that this is a truthful and accurate report by the Officer Bill of Rights, this subsection of the statute, correct?
Well, I signed my name and to show that indeed I actually completed that report and everything in those contents is what my investigation revealed.
Right, but you have not fulfilled the portion that says that it's true.
Correct. Correct.
Isn't it true, sir? First of all, you know former Officer Mulero, you knew him outside of work, outside of working at the city of DeLand, correct?
What do you mean outside of the city of DeLand?
I mean, did you ever run into him or socialize with him?
In church, yes.
Okay. The two of you attended the same church?
We did, yes.
Okay. Do you recall approaching Officer Mulero at church? On one occasion, this was at or about the time you were completing your final version of the report, Exhibit 13, Union Exhibit 13, and telling him that you were, you'd been pressured to write 3 different versions of the report?
That's incorrect.
You recall telling him at church that you had been asked to change the report 3 times?
That's incorrect.
Okay. So if Officer Mulero says that under oath and or anyone else, are you saying that they're lying?
Can I clarify something real quick? First of all, I never approached Officer Mulero. Officer Mulero approached me. He was actually sitting a couple of seats ahead of me, a couple aisles ahead of me. He turned, says, "Hey, can I talk to you?" Absolutely. And we actually spoke. The conversation first started with my wife there present, my daughter and then we actually separated. But the conversation never took place as far as me being pressured to change anything. That conversation never came up that way. As a matter of fact, Officer Mulero asked me if I'll be willing to give him a recommendation, and that's what the conversation was about.
Did you say at any point during that conversation, I don't care who initiated it, this conversation at church, you seem to recall having a conversation at church with Officer Mulero, correct?
I had a conversation with him, yes, sir.
Okay. Did you discuss with him about having 3 different versions of the report or being asked to change the report?
No, sir.
You're denying that under oath?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know his ex-wife? I think her name is Janini. I'll spell that for the court reporter. I believe it's Gainina. Mulero. Did you know that lady, sir?
I do not.
You don't know her? Okay.
No, sir.
Do you have any recollection of her being present with Officer Mulero at church on the day of your conversation?
No, sir.
Okay. You have no recollection?
She was not present at the time that I actually saw Officer Mulero there. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, I've been going to the church for quite some time, and Officer Mulero actually showed up one time. I didn't even know he actually went to the same church, which is the same time that we actually had the conversation that
okay. One other question about your signing of Exhibit 13. Are you aware under the Officer Bill of Rights that really you're supposed to complete an investigation in 180 days?
I'm sorry? Yes, I am. I'm aware of that. Yes, sir.
Do you have any knowledge of whether because you didn't, by your own admission, properly have this IA attested to as being truthful and accurate by your own admission, do you have any knowledge of whether this IA is considered still open?
Why would it be considered still open?
because you didn't sign it and swear to it as being truthful and accurate. Are you aware of that?
And now what are we talking in reference to this?
Are you aware that this investigation could be deemed still open because it hasn't been officially closed as required by statute?
And are we talking at the time that I made contact with Mulero at the church?
Even through today, because you admit even today, as we sit here on November 19, 2020, you still haven't gone back and had this properly attested to. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you don't know by operation of law, by the statute, whether this particular IA is even deemed correctly closed by statute, do you?
Objection. Calls for a legal conclusion. He's already testified that he's not an attorney.
I'm asking Mr. Schulman for his knowledge as a supposedly trained IA investigator and his legal experience, claiming that he understands the Officer Bill of Rights.
Okay, but you asked whether by operation of law,
Okay.
it's still there, so I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay, I'll rephrase it. Based on your understanding of the Officer Bill of Rights and your training and experience, sir, do you have any knowledge as to whether this IA is still deemed open based on your understanding?
But the fact that I missed one of the requirements, I see that. I didn't believe that by missing or my oversight as far as not putting one of the requirements down would keep these investigation open.
Okay. Let me just check my notes here for a moment. Is this the city's exhibit 17? This is about the second video. Just a moment. Do you have access to City Exhibit 17? That's ours. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it ours? All right. I'm sorry. My apologies. Our Union Exhibit 17. Let me know when you can see that, Lieutenant.
I can see that, sir.
Okay. Did you have any role in the drafting of the statement that was released by the city regarding this matter and Officer Mulero?
No, sir.
Okay. I just want to ask you just one question about the next page. Third paragraph. It says here, on or about July 26, 2018, the city received a second notice and a copy of a full-length video, 658 of the incident, which was in the possession of our city risk management director. Do you see that, sir?
I see that.
Okay. Do you have any way to confirm or deny whether this is a truthful statement?
I was given the information that the notice was actually forwarded to risk management, who handles all the civil litigations.
Okay. And by use of the words full-length video, this is, do you understand this is still a reference to there supposedly being a 20-second video somewhere that
it is actually referring to the video which actually depicted the entire incident.
And that's the only video that you based your investigation on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, I do have one other area of questions. It's my final area of questions for you today, sir. In the city's presentation on our first day, back on July 30th of this year, City Exhibit 52 was a series of some videos that were of Officer Mulero's BWC, his body-worn camera, as he encountered certain suspects. It was mentioned on that day by the city's council that you responded to a request from the city manager, Mr. Ployce, to supply some videos of Officer Mulero in the course of his duties. I want to ask you about that. First of all, do you recall being asked by someone in the city to locate some videos of arrests made by Officer Mulero?
Yes, sir.
And who communicated that request to you?
I believe I received a phone call from city manager requesting that information.
Would that have been Mr. Hayward?
No, sir. That's Michael Ployce.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael Ployce. That's correct. Mr. Hayward is HR. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay. So Mr. Ployce himself, you recall a phone conversation where he asked you to provide some videos.
Yes, sir.
And do you recall him asking you why he wanted those videos?
To be honest, I don't recall what he wanted them for. I guess I can't tell you honestly exactly verbatim what was said at the time as to why he wanted to see him.
Okay. Did he tell you for what purpose he needed them or what he was looking for?
He did not. He did not.
Okay. Did he ever send you an email to follow up his verbal request by phone?
I'll be honest, I don't remember whether he indeed sent me an email or not.
Okay. Well, if you don't recall what he asked you to look for, how did you determine which videos to pull?
I believe he asked to see whether we had other videos out there, and to, I randomly looked to see, videos that could, I would imagine possibly, look at, similarities. So that's what I did. He asked if there's any, videos out there, and I believe it could have been the fact, whether they were similar in nature, in which case I started just looking at random videos.
Okay, since you said you were only Officer Mulero's supervisor for a couple of weeks, you wouldn't have known of any videos off the top of your head because you weren't his supervisor. Is that correct?
Correct.
And isn't it true that a supervisor can at any time look at the BWC videos of their subordinate officers?
We have a policy in place now that it does. Back in the days, I guess this particular video, if I'm not mistaken, was View, and we were having issues with that particular program. But okay. Yes, they're supposed to have access to videos. Yes, sir.
So do you know, back in 2017, if supervisors were routinely looking or reviewing the videos of subordinate officers when they made
I cannot say that. I cannot answer that question. I'm not sure whether they were at that time. I know that we have a policy in place now.
How many videos were a part of City Exhibit 52? If you can see, right? I believe 5. Okay. 5 I think we saw 5 videos when we assembled there in the commission chambers on July 30th. 5 different videos of 4 or 5 of arrest encounters or encounters with citizens by Officer Mulero and his partner. Are you aware of that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's your partner's name? Spice. Okay. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I guess, is it fair to say you observed those videos before you sent them to Mr. Ployce?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in each of those 4 to 5 videos, it's my understanding that his being Officer Mulero's partner was an officer by the name of Bice, B-I-C-E.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's my further understanding, I want to see if you agree, that Officer Mulero did not incur any discipline from any supervisors as a result of his encounter with those citizens depicted in those videos. Do you have any reason to dispute that?
No, sir.
And is it fair to say, would you agree as a lieutenant, you've managed and supervised officers under your command at the city of DeLand, correct?
Yes, sir.
If you believe that a subordinate officer is acting inappropriately or not conducting himself or herself in the manner in which they have been trained in proper police procedure or DeLand PD protocol, the supervisor would be within their authority to take disciplinary action against the officer.
Yes, sir.
And is it also true, and would you agree, Lieutenant, that you cannot say that in any of those 4 to 5 videos that you sent on to Mr. Boyce revealed that Officer Mulero was conducting himself in any way other than which he had been trained?
No, sir.
Do you agree with that?
No, I do not agree with that.
Okay. Well, you were not his training officer, correct?
I was not correct.
Okay. And you've already told us a moment ago that you're not aware that he received any discipline from any supervisor for which this should have been a red flag if he was acting inappropriately or not in accordance with proper police procedure. You would have expected that he would have been counseled for that, correct?
Yes, sir.
So in any of those 4 to 5 videos that constitute City Exhibit 52, you're not aware of a single, even a verbal reprimand or an oral counseling that was associated with how Officer Mulero conducted himself on those occasions, correct?
Again, we didn't have a policy at the time that required the supervisors to review BWC, which is the body cams. Obviously, if an officer or, a supervisor would have reviewed these videos, it would have brought up a red flag. It would have brought some concerns.
But, and again, you don't know if a supervisor did review them and didn't have an issue with them or didn't review them. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Sergeant Santos has been with the city a number of years.
Yes, sir.
Correct? And I know you weren't present on day 1 on July 30th of this arbitration, but Sergeant Santos, he testified at the end of day 1 and said, and actually got quite emotional about his respect for Officer Mulero and said what a good officer he was and how he would see no hesitation if he were to be brought back and believing that he could function again as an asset to the city of DeLand. My question to you, sir, is you don't have any such reservations either, do you?
I do not. Other than the videos that I've actually observed in the investigation that I did. In addition to that, Sergeant Santos is a good friend of Officer Mulero's. So that's his opinion.
Of course. And you attend the same church with Officer Mulero, apparently, correct?
I do, but again, I've come across him twice. That doesn't make us friends.
Okay. But you've never had anything brought to your attention in all your years with the city of DeLand about the performance of Officer Mulero, how he interacts with the public or treats the public until you were asked to investigate this case, correct?
That's correct.
And then you went on a fishing expedition at the request of City Manager Ployce to find a handful of videos of his encounters with citizens of the public, correct?
Objection.
Yes.
It's argumentative.
Oh, you're muted, Mr.
Yes,
Tillman.
I am. Sorry about that.
All right.
I sustain the objection.
Okay.
Fishing expedition is argumentative.
Okay, I'll ask it another way. You were requested by the city manager to go locate other videos of Officer Mulero's encounter with citizens, correct?
Yes.
How many videos did you have to go through before you found what constitutes City Exhibit 52?
To be honest, I don't remember. Maybe 10, 12.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
just an estimate. Do you know what time frame did you look at? Did you look back for a year, 2 years, 5 years?
I went back, to be honest with you, those, the acts, they weren't axons. They were actually called view. I believe it only went back a year, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Are there any records that would corroborate or substantiate the time frame that you looked at for finding these videos? Are there any records? Did you keep a log? Did you email the city manager? Did you memorialize in any way, shape, or form the time frame in which you were looking for these videos?
I did not document the time frame. No.
So we're just taking your estimation here under oath today, some 3 years later, or actually 2 years later, since this was all in the fall of 2018. 2 years later, you estimate you went back a year, correct?
On or about, yes, sir.
And you estimate that you may have looked at 10 to 12 videos, but you're not even sure, correct?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't recall. It could have been, I don't know, 15, 20. I don't recall how many videos I actually looked at.
And do you have any data or knowledge of how many arrests that Officer Mulero would have made in the time frame within which you looked at video?
If I'm not mistaken, on resisting arrest without violence, I believe he made 37 arrests.
Okay.
Or 27, I'm sorry. Somewhere around there.
You're saying about approximately 27 arrests within the time frame that you looked at?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We made a request after day one for any and all videos or any records that would illustrate what videos that you looked at, that you opened and looked at for purposes of providing the videos that you did provide to the city manager. Were you made aware of that, sir?
I don't know.
Okay. And would you agree, sir, that each encounter with a citizen, as depicted in those 4 to 5 videos that are Union Exhibit 52, are to be evaluated and stand alone on their own facts? Meaning each situation is different.
They are.
Okay. When Mr. Wood played those videos for us on July 30th, first time I'd ever seen them, because we didn't know they were going to be shown that day. We had no advance notice, which is fine. But my question is, I see Officer Bice in all of those videos, and you said he was his partner on all those videos, correct?
Yes.
I see Officer Bice engaging in some of the same dialogue with the citizens, including in one video telling the person if he didn't roll down his window, he would smash it. Do you recall that?
I recall that.
So, and to our knowledge, Officer Bice wasn't counseled or disciplined at all for his role in these circumstances, was he?
For what I understand, and based on the videos in itself, Officer Bice came in after the fact, after Officer Mulero was actually addressing some of the subjects that they were in contact with at the time. So Officer Bice came afterward, and again, it's different videos. So if you can specify which video we're talking about, I'll be able to answer better your question.
Okay. Well, you remember one you told us under oath a moment ago where Officer Bice said, if you don't roll down your window, I'll smash it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's that?
He was there the entire time.
And Officer Bice was with him on each one of these same videos that you sent, that you pulled and felt illustrated Officer Mulero maybe perhaps engaging with the public in an inappropriate way, correct?
Yes, sir. He was there.
And you're telling us, as a lieutenant, you're not aware that Lieutenant Bice was faulted for his.
You mean
role.
Officer Bice?
Officer Bice was not disciplined, as far as you know, for his role being alongside Officer Mulero, correct?
Correct. And I'll say this: the Officer Bice on these videos that we're discussing was a secondary officer, not the primary officer. So yes, I mean, it doesn't make it. So to answer your question, the that was investigating was Officer Mulero.
Well, it doesn't matter. In training, a secondary officer can be just as guilty or liable.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yes.
Is Officer Bice a friend of yours outside of work?
No, sir, he's not.
Okay, hold on just a second, Mr. Wood. Is your audio not connected?
Alex, it looks like you guys aren't.
Here, I've unmuted you. Are you
Yeah,
connected again and
yeah,
you're
I
able to
did.
hear?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm still listed as the host, though. I don't know that it matters, but I'm not sure if it kept me that way.
You
Meanwhile,
are.
there was a good solid
You are
2
listed
minutes
as
of
host.
testimony questioning that we did not hear.
Oh,
Yeah, we missed probably 90 seconds to 2 minutes or so.
I could ask the court reporter to maybe locate where that point was.
So let me just summarize briefly. The last little bit of the testimony has been whether, in essence, whether Officer Bice, who engaged in, I gather, making a statement, roll down the window or I'll break it, whether that, in essence, merited some form of discipline. Lieutenant Milan said he was not aware that there was such discipline that was imposed. Lieutenant mentioned something about how Officer Bice was the secondary responding officer. And Mr. Wilson asked something to the effect of, well, does that matter? And Lieutenant Milan said, no, it didn't matter in terms of appropriate interaction with the public, whether they were primary or secondary. Mr. Wilson, does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's about being trained.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Let's
one-
move.
Okay, just one last thing for you, Lieutenant. I think you told us a moment ago that you too would not have any hesitation to, if it were in your hands, to bring back Officer Mulero and think that he could still be a good functioning police officer for the city of DeLand. Is that correct?
No, sir, I did not say that.
Okay, so you disagree with that?
I do.
Okay. Were you asked for your input at all on the ultimate decision and discipline that was issued to Officer Mulero?
No, sir.
Were you brought into any sort of meeting or even by phone call with Chief Umberger about the findings in your IA report, which is the final IA report, Union Exhibit 13?
Other than the show cause hearing.
Okay. You attended the show cause hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to look at one last exhibit, which is 31 or 30, I'm sorry, the affidavit of separation.
I'm sorry?
Give me a moment. It's the one you wanted, counsel?
Yes, sir. Do you recognize this document, sir, this affidavit of separation, the FDLE document?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you have any input on the completion of this report?
I'm the person that has access to ATMS. Is the only way you can actually complete this report. So I actually completed this report in itself.
Okay. Did you once you complete it, did you submit it to the chief for his signature?
Yes, sir, I did.
Were you present when the chief signed it?
I actually handed over to Rebecca Ackerman, who handles all that. She actually forwards all the forms that needs to be signed.
Okay. Do you have any knowledge or explanation of why it appears the chief signed it on December 10th of 2018 and it was notarized a year and 9 days later, or even if that date is wrong, if it was just 9 days later? You have any
Sorry, what
knowledge?
again?
You have any knowledge or explanation as to the signature of the chief and then it being notarized either 9 days later or a year and 9 days later?
It could have been the fact that I made I filled out the form incorrectly and maybe I had to redo it again and forward back to him. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, on the separation date, line 5 in the first box, line 5, it says separation date 12/3/18. You see that?
Can you zoom in, please? I cannot see that.
Do you see separation date, sir?
Again, is there any way we can zoom in? Yes, I do see the date 12/3.
Okay. And you completed this portion of the form other than the signatures at the bottom, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Wait a minute.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Let me see that
So
61 form. Can I see that 68 form again, please?
Can you see what, sir? You
Can
need it zoomed in or
zoom in
something?
on that 61 form?
I guess that's what this form is. Okay,
Yes, sir.
where would you
Yes,
like
sir.
to see, sir?
I'm not 100% sure what that. Let me see this here. Okay, I'm not 100% sure whether I was the one that actually completed this particular form.
But it is something that's in the course of your duties in IA?
There's a 78 form and a 61 form, and I'm not sure whether the 61 form is actually completed by FDLE themselves. I believe I completed a 78 form, and this 61 form is completed by FDLE, if I'm not mistaken.
Sir, I'll respectfully suggest to you you're mistaken, that this is completed by the agency and sent up to the FDLE because it's called an affidavit of separation. Are you aware of that?
Absolutely. Again, I had it confused with the 78 form 61.
Okay. Then my last question on this is, assuming Chelsea at the bottom here, if you could scroll, the lady, do you know who Chelsea Weaver is, or Weber?
She was an ex-employee, yes, sir.
Okay. Assuming for the moment that she was off by a year and it's really 2018 that she notarized it, do you still have an explanation as to why it was notarized 9 days after the chief signed it?
I do not.
I'd like to move this into evidence as Union Exhibit 30.
Any objection?
No objection.
It's submitted as Union Exhibit 30.
At this time, Mr. Schulman, we do not have anything further.
All right, so let's go off the record for a moment. So, counsel, it's 1:15. Do you folks have questions for this witness? Would Mr. DeRozier?
Yes, but not very many.
Okay, and then I presume that Mr. Wilson may have some redirect. Okay, let's go ahead and let's take our lunch break now because it's 1:15. We've been going at this almost 4 hours. So how long do the parties need for lunch?
Our side, I'm fine with just 30 to 45 minutes. I'm not going anywhere, and there's places really close here, but we'll defer to what you all need.
I mean, that would work if we came back at 1:30. That would give us just about 45 minutes.
All right, Ms. Riggs, is that okay for you?
That's fine.
All right, Lieutenant Milan, is 45 minutes enough for you to take a break, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm at home. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So let's go back on the record. So during a brief off-the-record conversation, counsel, the witness, the reporter, and I discussed taking of lunch. We're going to take lunch. We'll return at 1:30 p.m. I'll ask everyone please to be prompt with that deadline. And in the interim, Lieutenant Milan, you are still on the stand, so I'll ask you, sir, not to discuss what you've testified to or what you might testify to with anyone. All right, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. We are now adjourned.
Soup's not hot.
All right, folks, looks like it's 1:30. We ready to get started?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Very good. At this point, we'll go back on the record. And at this point, the city will commence its questioning of Lieutenant Milan.
Thank you, Mr. Schulman. Is it still all right with you if I have you man the controls on the documents? I will only have 3 in my my questioning.
That's fine.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Milan.
Good afternoon.
I just want to go through quickly a few things that were addressed during your direct examination by Mr. Wilson earlier, if that's all right with you. I am going to start with and ask Mr. Schulman if we can go to the Union's Exhibit 13, please.
Give me a sec.
Sure, thank you. And we'll be going to the second page of that exhibit. Lieutenant Milan, this is your internal affairs report, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In the third paragraph from the top, where it says on or about July 31st, do you see
Yes,
that?
sir. Yes, sir.
It says on or about July 31st, 2018, a second notice was received along with a second copy of the BWC video that was approximately 6 minutes and 58 seconds long. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is it your understanding that the city received that 6 minute and 58 second video, the full length video, on or about July 31st, 2018?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we could now please turn to the Union's Exhibit 6. Lieutenant Milan, do you see this document in front of you on your screen?
I do.
Can you read the date for me at the top of that document?
July 11th, 2018.
Okay, and earlier in your testimony, you were asked questions by Mr. Wilson about an opinion that was rendered by an attorney with respect to, I'll characterize it here, but you tell me if I'm wrong, about the propriety or lawfulness of the arrest and the conduct of Mr. Mulero with respect to the incident with Mr. Kidd. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this date, July 11th, 2018, this opinion, based on your testimony, would have been prior to anyone at the city reviewing the full-length video that you just discussed, the 6 minute and 58 second video. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, if we could go quickly to the Union's Exhibit 26. Thank you. Lieutenant Milan, this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a record of the BWC footage from the Internal Affairs interview with Mr. Kidd, a record showing that video was deleted, correct?
Yes, sir.
You did not delete this video, correct?
Correct.
You did not request that this video be deleted, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all for that exhibit. All right, Lieutenant Milan, in your role, in your capacity in Internal Affairs, who is your supervisor?
Deputy Chief Batten. At the time.
Okay, at the time. So, and he oversees your investigation?
Yes, sir.
And so you would discuss your investigations with him and bring any concerns to his attention if you were to have any?
Absolutely.
And at the time, Deputy Chief Batten is your supervisor and a more experienced officer. Would you disagree with that?
I would agree with that he's actually a more experienced officer. Yes, sir.
Okay, so there would be nothing unusual for him to have discussions with you about your investigation and potentially highlight things that you could have overlooked or not thought about in the course of your investigation?
Correct.
And so there would be nothing unusual about that.
Nothing unusual. No, sir.
And isn't it true that the report itself isn't finalized, isn't a finished product until, or unless and until you and the deputy chief agree on it and the deputy chief signs off on it?
Correct.
That's all I have for him.
Okay, then. Redirect.
Yes, Lieutenant, can you still hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
You were asked by Mr. Desrosiers just a moment ago about the Exhibit 13, about the city's, on page 2, about the video, and the city saying in its report prepared by you about the receipt of the video.
Yes, sir.
And